survivor's guilt is a very real thing. I think survivor's responsibility is too. And the best way, whether we lost him overseas or back home, because I've lost him.
He's been a super big inspiration with me, with his story, finding out all the things that we have in common. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Nate Boyer. Nate,
thanks for having me, Sean.
Of course. You want to tell everybody, some people that may not know who you are, a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I was born in Tennessee, raised in the San Francisco Bay Area, though, for most of my life. Grew up a huge 49ers fan. When I was a kid, they won a bunch of Super Bowls, and so that dynasty was, something I latched onto. My heroes as a kid were like Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Ronnie Lott, those guys. Was always kind of a late bloomer, so a little small. Loved sports, played baseball, basketball, soccer, every other sport but football, and then kind of regretted not playing even at a young age. And went through high school, still didn't play, and something just bothered me for a long time. So I graduated, moved to San Diego, worked on a fishing boat for a little bit, moved up to LA with an interest in film and TV at the time. And then 9/11 happened. And didn't join the military right away, but eventually signed up and joined the Army, became a Green Beret, and served on active duty as a Green Beret for about 5 years. And then when I transitioned to the National Guard, decided to go back to college. I came to Austin, to the University of Texas, and walked on, made the football team, kind of fulfilled that dream, and eventually found my way on the field as a long snapper. So I had the opportunity to play football while still serving in the National Guard while I was in school. Kind of did both those things. And then had a brief stint with the Seattle Seahawks in the NFL. Got to play in one preseason game at 34 years old, which was pretty awesome. And then got cut, as almost everybody does at some point. And around that time, too, I'd gotten out of the military. So all of a sudden now I'd lost both those uniforms and whether it was camouflage or a jersey, you got that team,
right.
and those were gone. And so that's when I co-founded MVP, which stands for Merging Vets and Players. And I know we'll talk more about that, but essentially what we do is bring together combat vets and former pro athletes and help them find purpose and identity when they lose a uniform. Because that's what happened to me. I kind of lost my purpose and identity. And so that's been going on for like 7 years now. That's kind of the main focus, aside from doing the film and TV stuff that I love, storytelling, and that's where we are today. Yeah, and it's been awesome to get to know you just a little bit. I'm gonna get to know you more today,
right?
Over the last few months, because I think we got a lot in common. Our stories, they definitely intertwine.
Right, for sure. Let me go back to when you get into the league. You said you're 34.
Yeah.
What's the reaction from the rest of the team with the 34-year-old guy just coming on the field for the first time? What are they saying?
Well, I mean, first of all, I don't think a lot of them knew. Maybe they knew how old I was, but I don't think many of them knew that, I hadn't played football until I was 29.
Right.
So that was, when they found that out, that was just like, what? That's crazy. And it's like, well, when you take a thankless job like long snapping, you have a better opportunity,
right,
to get that to that place and have that chance. But yeah, no, I mean, they were very, I guess, sort of appreciative of my background and my story. And, and it was like that in college too. I think a lot of people, they'll often ask, how these young kids in the locker room at Texas, like, they don't know, right? I mean, they have no idea about like what real hard work is. And I'm like, that's not true. Like,
right.
They do. It's just different. They have a different experience. And
there had to be some shit talk going on though.
Oh, there was always shit talk. Yeah. And I was always the old guy. Like, so I was the old guy, and obviously with the Longhorns, I was 29 to 33 while I was in college. But when I got to the Seahawks at 34 as a rookie, I was the oldest guy on the team, right, at the same time. It was the youngest team in the NFL,
right,
at that time. They'd been to back-to-back Super Bowls. This is when they were, it was Russell Wilson, Marshawn Lynch, Richard Sherman, Michael Bennett, like Jimmy Graham just signed to the team that year. I mean, they had a really iconic squad, but they were young. And the average age of the guy on the team was like 26 or something.
Right.
And, here comes this old dude.
Right.
Who's like small for his position and very old for any position.
Right.
But no, they were great. They were very welcoming, and I think they saw value in the short time I was there. Only there for about 5 months, but they saw value in the sense of like what I brought to the locker room and just a different perspective,
Yeah.
experience, and yeah, it was fun while it lasted.
Right, for sure. So, what's your mindset like? You're out of the league. You're out of the military. You know, I texted you last night that I wanted the movie fresh in my mind from when we met today. But I watched MVP, his foundation, or what?
Yeah, it's a nonprofit organization. It is a
Nonprofit,
foundation.
right.
Yeah, emerging vets and players. Yep.
It also has a movie that tells the story of MVP, and I was expecting to turn into a documentary, which I love, and I was gonna be excited for, but I opened it up and realized it is like a full-fledged Hollywood movie that you've written, directed, produced, everything. I was like,
well, it's cheaper to do it that way.
Right. Okay. And then I see Sylvester Stallone's name pop up there as executive producer, and I was like, holy shit, this is like super legit movie. And dude, I laughed, I cried, and I know what it's like from the military perspective. I played sports growing up, and like there was a huge part of my story where, my background is drugs and alcohol and addiction and stuff like that. But when I lost basketball, when I lost the military and stuff like that, I lost myself. That was my identity. So I'm going through the world every day, like wondering who am I? What am I into? Like I was completely lost. And so it was amazing to watch that movie last night and understand that there's other people out there like that, from all different walks of life and coming together and doing stuff like that. So like what was your experience or your mindset when you were kind of lost and you looked around and realized what it was that you're not putting on these uniforms anymore?
Yeah, I've always been the type of person that I love the unknown, right? And I love challenges, which most everybody that joins the military or plays sports at a high level, they've got to enjoy the challenge of it and the competitiveness. Like
Yep.
I'm a competitive person, right? But what's unique in both those worlds too, and that what they share is that you typically peak at a pretty young age, at least physically, probably in your 20s, and so you put all of your energy into that, and then it's over, and you feel like your greatest days are behind you, and you're like a third of the way through your life.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so it creates that problem, I think, where we feel like not only do we have to start over, but it's like the only thing I ever really cared about and wanted to do, and that tribe that I found is now just gone.
Yeah.
And I feel awkward staying in touch with them because they still got a job to do. They're still focused on the mission at hand, and going to try to win a Super Bowl, or go be successful overseas on on military missions. And so you're in this like weird kind of awkward place where you're just like, I feel like those are the only people I can connect to, but I also feel very disconnected now from them. And yeah, I just remember, and my story is different in the sense of, because I played football a little bit later, because I played at a place like Texas and had the opportunity with the Seahawks and all of that stuff, a decent amount of notoriety. So my story was out there, and, you'd think like, well, I don't feel alone because people are like, man, Nate, you got such a cool story, and like, you're a legend and all this stuff. So you would think you'd feel like you have at least that community. But I still felt kind of alone, even though I know I had support, and I'm lucky. I got a great family too. I was very blessed to be born into that. So I had all these things going for me, every reason to just be grateful for the opportunities and the privilege that I experienced. But I still felt kind of, just like, alone doesn't even describe it. That's why I'm trying to think of a better word, because it was more like detached, like super detached, like this is still, this thing's right here with all these people that I get, and I'm just like right here, just off the edge. And I feel like I don't want to crack through that bubble because it's not my world anymore. It's not my place, and then I turn around, look elsewhere, and I just feel like I don't have anything in common with people. It's not true. It's just what we feel. You know? And so I was just kind of floating in this weird negative space. And when I say negative space, it's not just empty space. It's like literal negative space in my mind. And I was just like, I was ready to grasp at anything that felt like it would replace that fire inside, that you feel when you're attacking the challenge, or when you're training to go try and run 100 miles or whatever it is. Like,
right.
It's something that a lot of us with probably addictive personalities, which I think I do have.
Yeah.
We crave that. Like we need that sort of connection, you know what I mean, to something more than just like our regular day to day. And we want to feel, at least me, I want to feel like I'm, giving my all at something, and I'm kind of pouring, my life into that. And then when you're in that place where you weren't prepared for the next thing, you didn't really have your, a plan B aligned, or kind of the next phase situated, because you were so focused on not getting cut, from the football team or whatever, then you're kind of like in this weird place for a bit. And I don't know. I just felt like I was ready to do anything else, but at the same time, I had no idea what that thing was. And then I didn't want to put all my eggs into some basket that I wasn't even sure I want that basket,
right.
So it was just like an awkward time. And Jay Glazer, who I co-founded MVP with, he's the one who kind of came up with the idea to bring these two groups together, because I was thinking about going back to the recruiter's office, or whatever, calling up people, hey man, maybe I'll come back in. I'm not that old. I'm 34. I could still do the job in the military.
Yeah.
But he was like, no, man, like there's so many people in your shoes, not just vets and athletes, just people.
Yeah.
Transitions are hard for everybody. That could use either a program like this, or at least some messaging around like how, that we can kind of harness and redistribute that energy into other places. There's nothing wrong with that. And you could still do incredible things with your life and, change the world, or, wherever.
Right.
I mean, we all want to, at some level, like we want to belong, we want to make a difference. We want to feel like it matters that we're here, and that we're doing something productive for society, or at least our families and stuff like that. So,
dude, what you just said about harness and redirect, I literally say that all the time, and it goes in line with, addiction and stuff like that, because I put all this energy into the hustle of getting high every day and to get what I need to be okay, this medicine that I need every day. And when I got sober, I still have all that energy, and thank God I stumbled into running and fitness and stuff like that, because I had to put that energy somewhere, or else it was gonna drive me crazy. And what you're saying about the notoriety that came with your story and stuff like that, I think the film did an amazing job of, I can already see it from the military perspective, from a veteran perspective, but you think an athlete that's made all this money and stuff like that, and like when they retire, oh, they're good.
Right.
What I mean? But the movie, the way it paints his picture in that character is, he did good in the league. He has that notoriety and he has money and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's the locker room he misses. It's that camaraderie. It's all that energy. He still's got it. He's got to put it into somewhere. So you guys did an amazing job on that.
Thanks. I mean, I'll be honest. Like, you mentioned before. I co-wrote it. I did direct it. I produced it. I, oversaw post-production, all these things, because I didn't have to pay that person if I was doing all that. So I was able to make this thing for nothing, or next to nothing. But not only did I have like an incredible team around me, to get it done, but the script kind of wrote itself through the stories of people that have been there at MVP huddles, and kind of shared what's going on. So like, after the movie's over, during the credits, it kind of shows a little bit about the real organization and some of the people involved and like what we do. Because on a weekly basis, we meet in the gym. We have 8 chapters around the country. We meet in the gym. We train together for about 40, 45 minutes, and then we huddle up, and it's just peer-to-peer coaching, open forum. Nothing's off the table. We encourage vulnerability. If you got something weighing on your chest or something, you've been carrying around for 10 minutes or 10 years, like this is the place to lay it out.
Yeah.
With no judgment, and then it stays on the mat and we leave, but just like, let's get it out of here. But also we want to share wins and good stuff and all that as well. The point is, like, we have that weekly team. You know, we've got that locker room, that place where you feel people will get you in the room. They understand you. You have a shared experience. And so, yeah, for the movie itself, like, when I was sitting down with my co-writer, Garen Jones, he's a veteran as well. He was in the UK military, and it's the very exact same problems they're having over there. I mean, it's universal. You know what I mean? Same things. But when we were working on, especially like the dialogue and stuff like that, it was I don't say it was easy. It's really hard to write a script, but it
came natural.
Yeah, it came natural because it's just real. The stuff that is said in the movie is like the real words of people. And then some of those athletes like Randy Couture and Tony Gonzalez who are in it, you know, Hall of Famers in their respective sports, they're just telling their own stories.
Right.
Like, yeah, I wrote down a paragraph because I kind of knew their story, but I was like, I know you read the script and I know you memorized it. I'm like, just tell your story. Don't worry about the script. You know what I mean?
I could see that. It came through. Like, at no time did I ever like, oh, they just got some big name players or a big name fighter to be in this. Like, you could tell they were coming from a place of, place from their heart.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
And I imagine like your character, you don't play yourself, but I mean, I have to imagine that a lot of that, what's said, the feelings, the emotions, are what you were feeling too.
Totally. Yeah, a lot of it. I mean, that too. And when I was writing the Zephyr character, a lot of it is things I've felt, said, done. You know, it is based on other people. Actually, the two guys at the end of the movie in the credits, AJ and Denver, it's based on their backstory, the Zephyr character, and a lot of it is based on their lives. And a lot of people's lives. I mean, those are all composite characters with Willie Phil, the athlete, and Zephyr, the vet. But even with Willie Phil, a lot of that was stuff I felt and experienced, where other athletes I've talked to, and same with Zephyr, it was like, maybe I don't have the exact same background and experience of these guys, but a lot of it is the same, and like the survivor's guilt and all those things that we often feel very much the same. And, we're just not very good to ourselves often.
Yeah.
I think not just, women too, but I think men, maybe particularly, at least in that world, because, we, for so long, it's been, whether it's just the status quo or what we're taught, it's weak to be vulnerable. It's weak to be sad or to express your emotions or to talk about it with somebody or to say that you need help, that's all like signs of weakness, when in reality it's actually the opposite. I think, it's stronger to do that because you can't do, there's very few things in life, anything worth doing really, it's pretty impossible to do alone, at some level.
For sure.
You need help. We all need help, and admitting that and asking for it when you need it is a lot more courageous than just trying to suck it up and drive on, like we say in the movie, and like you're taught. I mean, there's a time and place for that. Yeah. When you're on the field, when you're on the battlefield, that's not the time to maybe be vulnerable. Yeah. Right. But afterwards, you gotta be. Yeah. And even the Spartans, they had like mandatory grieving period when they came back from battle, because it's like they even knew thousands of years ago, like, this is, if you don't purge this stuff, it just eats you alive from the inside out.
Right. You spoke about the end of the film, like the film had me on an emotional like roller coaster or whatever, but the end where you see the live guys and you see you can hear in their voice, you know what I mean? You see the emotion and all that stuff. It hit me hard. I looked over with my wife and tears in my eyes, and she likes making, whenever I watch a military movie, it gets to me. Yeah. And she looks over and starts messing. She's like, "Oh, babe, are you okay?" But man, those guys, and just seeing them in that group, and the one gentleman who I forget his name. He looked like he played for the Giants, but then he was in the.
He did play, yeah.
He was in the movie.
Jared. Yeah, Jared Bunch. He was a first-round draft pick by the Giants. Played at University of Michigan.
Right.
He played 4 years and was like, I think he was he's an all-pro, like rookie of the year for the team and all that, and then he got hurt in his 4th year, and that was it.
All right.
Just bam. All of a sudden, he's 26, 27 years old. It's over.
Right.
And and that's, he's playing a different character. He's playing a character named Ray Jones. He's not playing himself in it, but like he brought so much of his real story and life to that. Yeah, he knows what that's like.
When you see him really talk at the end and do his little interview, you're like, oh man. And like, it's, you know, I'm guilty of it too. I think anybody that's made it to the NFL, they're like, oh, you're set for life. But then this is real emotions and real stuff that people are going through.
Yeah. I mean, very few, first of all, get to end on their own terms. You know, I mean, they're and Michael Strahan and Howie Long have a cool little cameo in it. And those guys, in a sense, you know, it was, I don't know fully, but in a sense, they were one of that one part of that 1% that got to kind of end it on their own terms, you know. But most of them, you know, even some of the greatest ever, it's like kind of an awkward ending often, you know, whether it's they step away from the game, but it's like maybe they were kind of told, hey, it's time to hang it up. You know, it's, or you get cut or the injury ends it or whatever it is. It's like, it's tough. And not all of them are making, you know, millions and millions of dollars. So many of them are. And of course it's a great living. Even the low man on the pay scale is still making really good money in relation to the rest of the world. Absolutely. But when you are in that setting and, you know, especially if you came from a place where you never had anything. And then all of a sudden you got some stuff and you're taking care of other people, you know.
Trying to keep up with the other guys on the team that are making all that money.
Exactly.
Right.
And, you know, you're just not prepared for it because you're not thinking that way. If in your mind you're like, all right, the average NFL career is only 3 years, so I'll probably be done in 3 years. If that's your mindset, you'll be done that day.
Right.
You know, those guys have to think, I'm going to play for 20 years. You know what I mean? And there's nothing's going to take me off that field. I don't care how hurt I am. Nothing's going to take me on. And then, you know, it's not how it actually works, but you do have to have that mindset in the moment to keep playing at that level. So you're not thinking about what's next. You're not thinking about being a veteran.
Right.
You know, and same in the military. We don't think about, I never thought about it until I was one. And then I was like, oh, now I am a veteran. Like what veteran organizations? I don't even know about these. You know? This is a thing. Like, what, the VA, what's that?
Right. And my experience was I was groomed to think there was no life after the military. That if I was getting
there isn't.
If I was getting out of the military, that there wasn't, you know, my life was over. And so I didn't really get out on good terms, and so that just made me spiral. That farther. So
well, I mean, it's all about retention too, and you understand why. Like, you know, it's the strongest military in the world, and like national defense does matter and all that. And if those people that are not only recruiting you but training you and you know, leading you,
that's a good point.
You know, for them it's like, we got to keep these people in. You know, I spent all this time and energy, and the government spent a lot of money to train Sean and Nate, you know, and they're good at what they do. We got to keep them in. But then when it is time to leave, it's not really, to them it's like, well, it's not our responsibility anymore. We don't have time for that. We got to focus on bringing up the next guy. And it's the same in football. It's like, we're so sorry to let you go, but like, we got this new guy now. We got to focus on him because we got to go win. You know, that's our job. And
that's you put that really well. So you, as writing this movie, how did Tom Arnold come into the movie and like that? Because that scene right there is a great scene, and like I can see the emotion of what the gentleman that plays the NFL player,
Mo McRae, the actor,
what he was going through in that. But like, how did you, as you're writing that movie, how you're like, I think I'm gonna get Tom Arnold and we're gonna do this fantasy thing? Like, where did that come from?
No, I mean, when I was originally that character had a different name before we cast Tom, but I'd gotten an opportunity to have lunch with him back in like 2016, and you know, he'd heard my story and been following some stuff, and you know, Tom's a farm boy from Iowa, you know what I mean? And he's an Iowa Hawkeye football fan, and but also Tom, and this story is, you know, it's public, so I can share this, and I won't share too much detail about it, but you know, he lost a nephew to suicide who was in the military. You know what I mean? So like that's something that's really important. Not that he wasn't, you know, respectful of you know, the military and veterans before, but like to another level. This was very personal to him, and so I remember him telling me that story. And so when I was writing that fantasy football character, I knew I wanted somebody. I mean, it's fun. It has to be part of the comic relief because there's not a ton of comedy. It's a serious movie, it's a serious topic, but like I wanted some of that. And when we got down, we got getting ready to shoot it, because I mean, we shot this in the fall of 2020, so it's, you know, we're knee deep in COVID. This is in LA. It was right after the Screen Actors Guild had passed they had basically like the COVID protocols to shoot on set. So you can still shoot, you just have to do X, Y, and Z, test 3 times a week and all this stuff. So once we got all that stuff done, I was like, man, I really want like a recognizable face for this role, and somebody who has worked in the sports world, because he used to host the Best Damn Sports Show ever with like John Sally and some other folks. And so, you know, he's got that experience, and also he's the GOAT, man. And a lot of like some of it, I mean, he improvs some stuff too, but it was funny. So I'm getting ready to cast that, and I'm like thinking about different people that make sense. And Tom's the one who keeps popping up in my head, but I was like, man, we don't have anything to really pay the guy. Like, I'm just going to ask him and see, and just let him know, like, hey, like we only need you for a day. We got, you know, we don't have much, and blah, blah, blah. And I hit him up, and he was just like, he was so excited to be a part of it. He did not care about the money at all. He was like, he's like, no, like, I'd be an honor to be a part of it. I love what you guys are doing, the MVP. And he read the script. He's like, this is great. He's like, this is actually really good. Like, he's like, I have some ideas though. And I'm like, perfect, please bring them, because I know whatever you're going to do is going to be funnier. So some of it was probably 70% of what he did was scripted, and then about 30%
the witches and warlocks.
Tom.
Is that improv?
No, that was written.
Really?
That was written. The improv stuff was some of the improv stuff when he's talking about you know, his gambling problems and drinking, and like, you know, how many times you've been married, and all this stuff.
Right. That was good.
Which is funny, because it's like Tom has experienced those things in his own personal life, and he's very open about it. Yeah. So he's, you know, he's making those generalizations that a lot of people would maybe make about an athlete and an athlete of color. Yeah. You know, and that's what his character was just doing, and it's just ironic. And Mo just rolled with it so well, because he stayed in character. He didn't break, and he was just like
professional. Yeah,
like I have one wife, you know. And I have one kid. Like he's like, oh, I'm sure you had a lot of kids and different women and drinking problems, and he's like, never, no, you know. Right. Anyway, you got to see it.
It was good.
Awesome. But he was incredible, and he showed up. We got to film an NFL Network that day. The NFL was super supportive from the beginning on the project, and they helped promote afterwards, which is great, because they thought it was an important message for their current and former players. He shows up and on set, and that's pretty much mostly what we're doing that day, is all the stuff with Tom. And, you know, like he had obviously read the script and all that, but he intentionally didn't want to know his lines that well, because he knew he was going to do his thing. And I haven't been around that many pros, you know, especially in the comedy space. I haven't done a lot of comedy related things. And so I was nervous. I was like, oh man, like he doesn't really know his lines. And like, how is Mo going to handle this? Cause of course Mo's a pro too, but this guy's just shooting from the hip. Like, I don't know. And then as soon as call action and go, I was just like, wow, I am not needed today. Right. These guys got it. Yeah.
That's awesome. What, so silly questions. How many cigarettes did you smoke in the filming of that movie?
At least 100.
Really?
Yeah, a lot. There were some scenes where we had like, you know, you do multiple takes, and
that's what I was wondering.
And I probably went through 10 cigarettes in a matter of like an hour, and I don't smoke normally. I have in the past, but like, and it's non-filtered American spirits. Terrible idea.
Is that what they were?
Yeah, we should have had the movie ones, but we didn't.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think of the movie ones. Get some ultralights or something.
Yeah, it was dumb.
I was putting it together into my head. I'm like, damn, he's smoking like every scene. I know Nate doesn't smoke normally. He's training for Honor Mahler right now. And I was like, he probably smoked in the military. So like, but then I was like, I wonder like how many takes cut. Light up another one.
Yeah, I got pretty lightheaded in a few scenes for sure. Yeah, I was just like, God, dude, you're an idiot. But once we establish this type of cigarette, you know, especially for closer stuff, it's got to match. And, I don't know. We probably could have figured it out, but I was just stubborn, and I'm in character, so you know, I should be a little lightheaded. Why not?
Right. There you go. And then so the opening scene, and then towards the end when you run out of the Unbreakable gym, where you're running barefoot.
Yeah.
So there's cars on the road. Do you have to get like permission to do that, or are you guys just out there guerrilla style doing it? Really?
Guerrilla style.
That
Yeah,
makes it-
I mean, you're supposed to, but like we didn't have permits.
It's got to happen
So,
all the time, I'm sure.
I think it does. I mean, once it's done, it's done. You know what I
Right.
mean? And you just gotta. I mean, also, it's like it's such a small production, and I mean, I think we had one or two times where, you know, we talk to a police officer, a security guard, and all that, and they understand. And we just tell them point blank, this is the project, this is what it's about, this is who's involved, because it's mostly vets. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but every veteran portrayed on screen was played by an actual vet, like all of them.
Oh, okay.
Those are all vets. Even Dan Lauria, the dad from the Wonder Years.
From the Wonder Years.
He was a Vietnam vet.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not
Yeah.
know that.
So those are all vets. And then behind the camera, we had a ton of vets on the crew too. The only department head that wasn't a vet was my cinematographer, the DP, Logan Fulton, who really good friend of mine, worked with him for, I guess, like 6 years now, you know. And so that was the only guy that wasn't, or the only, not just guy, I mean, girl too. They were the only person that wasn't a vet that was a department head. And then filling in a lot of the other, you know, ranks in the crew. And then, like I said, all the vets on screen were played by vets. So like you tell them that and they're just like, all right, hurry up, you know,
Right.
hurry up and get out of here. But like stuff like that, like we had to steal a lot of shots. And so
Yeah.
that was a big one. And luckily we got it in one take because I got a big chunk of Sunset Boulevard in my bottom of my foot from running on that barefoot.
So was that a conscious decision to run out barefoot?
Yeah, because like I was like, all right, we're on the mat, you know, and we're doing our MMA thing, and then like if he's leaving if he's pissed off,
He's not
going to take time to put his shoes on, but also like it's symbolic a bit of just like, you know, wanting to feel that pain, you know what I mean, feeling like he deserves to feel pain, and so it was another reason to do that, and it led right into, you know, the scene we cut to after that where he's back at the barracks and now he's jumping rope, and you know I won't spoil that, but that's a, you know, intense scene, and that's all like it's something that a lot of us feel, you know, and I had a lot of vets kind of reach out after and be like, you know, tell me about those scenes and how they, you know, they're like, I'm embarrassed to admit, but I beat myself up quite a bit too, like figuratively and literally, you know, and not just vets. I mean, just people we do that, you know, and
Right.
the self-harm thing is. It's a very real thing, you know, and I definitely wasn't, there's no intent to glorify it, but it is to show it, you know, that this is something that people do to almost soothe in a weird way, you know what I mean? But I don't want to say weird, that's not fair. Soothe in almost a
Odd way.
Yeah, not in a backwards way, because it doesn't look soothing, you know,
Right.
but it's just like feeling like you deserve that. I can relate to that. It's not correct, you know, it's not real, but we do often feel that, you know.
I'm not sure if I lost one of my best friend in the military. We had multiple tattoos together. He was my brother. He's this little dude, little stocky dude from the Bronx, black dude, was a blood, like all that. And we came together. He was my absolute brother. And he had hung around me so much to where I'm pretty sure he got desensitized to watching me do drugs. And so he had dabbled, but he had never done anything really hard. And he ended up getting stationed somewhere else. I had gotten out, and then unfortunately he was partying with some people and mixed opiates and Xanax, and laid down for a nap and never woke up. And dude, for the longest time, I've carried that, like, I introduced him to this life and all that stuff, and it should have been me, not him. I deserve to go. And so I've had that scene. I've had multiple instances where it's, you know, I mean, I'm beating myself up, stuff like that. And the only way, me personally, that I've been able to kind of reconcile that is I truly feel like, you know, I believe in God. I believe in a higher power. And if there's a chance he's looking down on me, everything I do every single day, I do with a chip on my shoulder. I have something to prove, and it's to show him that hopefully I'm making him proud. If he's looking down on me, I hope I'm making him proud. And I like to think that I am, but like that's one of the things that keeps me driving in the directions that I am and doing what I'm doing. And it was just the only way I could wrap my mind around it to where I'm not continually beating myself up to where I end up in the same place.
Yeah, it's something, we talk about a lot at MVP, and survivor's guilt is a very real thing, but I think survivor's responsibility is too.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And the best way, whether we lost them overseas or back home, because I've lost more people back home than I did overseas,
right?
In my experience in the military. The best way to honor their death is the way that we live our lives. So I think I know you're doing it, and I know he knows that too, but just in case you didn't know, you are doing it, man.
Thank you. So did you have a rock bottom moment in your journey to where you kind of looked yourself in the mirror and you're like, oh, I got to change some shit. I have to figure something else out because this isn't the way.
I feel like I've had a few, and I'll probably have more,
right?
Which sucks to know that, that impending doom of the future.
Right.
But I think that's just life. Like, it does happen. But the first one that I clearly remember was when I was 23 years old, and it was before I joined the military, and I was living in Los Angeles. I'd been there for about, I guess, 4 years at the time, and 9/11 had happened a couple of years prior to that. And I thought about joining, but I still didn't do it. And then I just was like, nah, I don't want to be in the military. I'm not right for the military. Those guys are all marching around with, crew cuts and all. That's not me.
Mm-hmm.
But the real reason I think I was afraid of it or had those doubts is because I thought that I wasn't good enough, or that like I can't have somebody's life in my hands. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not the right guy. So just feeling at that time like everything I did was fairly self-serving, and not understanding also that you can still do things that you love and enjoy, and you should do things that you love and enjoy, but also can benefit other people's lives at the same time. Like, it's not one or the other, you know what I mean? So I just felt like, well, I don't make a difference in anybody else's life. If I wasn't here, the world would keep spinning just fine, Yeah, my family would miss me, but like, no one would really, no one else would.
Right.
And that's not a good feeling. You feel like that you don't make it, you don't matter, you don't make a difference, and you're not benefiting the universe at large in any way by you still being here. And so it wasn't, I never genuinely thought about disappearing from the earth, but I also felt like just that numbness of just, not mattering, not belonging.
Right.
And so I just remember like that rock bottom moment. I just remember, I was driving on the highway somewhere in LA, and I think everybody's had this thought, just like, what if I did just what if I just took a hard right, and drove off this cliff right now? Like, what if, I wonder what would happen? Like, how crazy would it be? Like, what would what would that mean to other people?
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt another overwhelming feeling of guilt for even having that thought.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I just remember like pulling over, and it was dark. It was late at night, and I just started like bawling and like screaming at God, like, tell me what to do, like, what am I supposed to do? Just tell me.
Yeah.
And that's not how it works. Like, you don't, at least with me, I didn't just get this like join the military, thing, but it was like, I don't know, maybe it was good to do, because it was like I was letting myself feel and give myself permission to be angry and all those things, feel all that the roller coaster of emotions like we're supposed to feel, and then I went home, and I went over to, I think I even went out that night anyway, and was with a buddy. And then in the morning, I like wake up on a couch, and that's when I saw the Time magazine article called "The Tragedy in Sudan," was the title of it. And it was about, the genocide going on in the Darfur, which led me to going over and volunteering for a couple of months, doing relief work, and really feeling like I did make a difference in some people's lives for a bit. That led me to coming back to the States and joining the military. So like, so grateful for that moment, it sucks when you're in it, but like we need it. We all need to get our heart broken. Like we need in various ways, like those things have to happen for us to become stronger, but also to, go on to do great things. I think, I know that there is no greatness without a great obstacle to overcome. And I don't think we should go out there seeking, or not seeking, we should be seeking challenges, seeking obstacles. I don't think we should be trying to put ourselves in a position where, we're finding rock bottom. But like, if you are there, you're not going to notice it in the moment, but like after the fact, be grateful for it. And like, what are you going to do with that? Because without it, I wouldn't have done the things that I did.
Yeah.
I would never have believed it was possible to try out for the Longhorns and all these other things, but that was it all came from that moment at 23, or that first of several rock bottoms, and then they come and they go, but the good outweighs the bad, I think.
For sure. It's amazing how, like, you're sitting there explaining one side of the spectrum, and parallel is like in the addiction world, the biggest thing, our biggest problem is selfish and ego and all that stuff. And, you not being an addict, alcoholic, or anything like that, the first thing you did was go get outside of yourself and start helping people. And you went over there and you started helping people, and it led you down this journey. And that's what we talk about in the addiction world all the time, is you have to get out of self. And that's where my life truly started to change. Like, I was always trying to fill this void in my heart, and I'd try to fill it with drugs, alcohol, women, whatever, shopping, shoes, you name it, and it would never fill it. And then as soon as I started turning my sights towards helping people, that's when my life completely transformed and became that. And you said something else, and I've been saying this quote a lot, and I think Mike Tyson said it. I saw that he said it, but he said, without test, there is no testimony.
That's cool.
And so I heard that, and it's stuck with me ever since. And so,
right. Yeah. I mean that doing those things though, they are self-serving in the sense of like you feel better about who you are and your place in the world when you do that. So they are still self-serving, and
it helps us to help other people.
Totally. Right. Yeah. And so maybe that is selfish too. I don't know, but at least in the process, you're doing some good for others, and it does, and that is the only way, at least for me, to actually fill that void.
Right.
You know what I mean? If it's all just stuff, or whatever, like achievements, it's not going to do it.
Right.
It's so much more about helping somebody else achieve, and then you're like, oh, okay, that's the feeling.
Right, for sure. So speaking of without any test, there is no testimony. You have a big test coming up pretty soon. You're running your first 100-mile race. How are you feeling?
I mean, I'm as ready as I'll ever be, and I'm not the type of person who looks into things too much. Like I say this all the time, and I genuinely mean it. I like to stay a bit naive about stuff like that, because if I overthink it, overanalyze it, I'll psych myself out. Yeah. Or there's such a thing of, I mean, people talk about overtraining, but I almost will over prepare if I let myself, and that's not necessarily a good thing for me. So keeping a little bit of an arm's distance with it and the idea of it helps. It helps me focus on like right now, like the next step. You know what I mean? Yeah. Instead of the 100 miles that are ahead, it's the next stride or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it definitely comes from wanting to do stuff like this comes from, and I'm not ashamed of it, but it comes from insecurity. It comes from maybe a bit of boredom and just wanting to squeeze every drop out of life. You know what I mean? And just experience things and I don't know. I want to do it all. We're only here one time as far as I know. So like, I want to see everything and try everything, even if I fail. So I know I won't quit. I know that about myself, but I don't know what's going to happen. And the farthest I've done so far is 54 miles. I did that about 2 months ago. So, but hey, that's, it is what it is. And no matter what distance I've run, so far, and I've done a couple marathon distance. I've done a 50K. No matter what, about 70% of the way through it, I start shutting down a bit. So hopefully that maintains.
Right.
And it's not until pretty deep into the 100 miles that I'm starting to really want to quit. And hear that voice in my head. But if it happens earlier,
no, it won't.
So be it, and I'll deal with that. But it's just a voice in my head. It's up to me to choose whether to listen to it or not.
Well, you definitely have the right attitude and mindset. And my only my best advice is just go aid station to aid station. Don't think about the whole 100. Good. Just think about how many miles to that next aid station, and then, dude, believe it or not, like smiling, like. When you're, you know what it's like out on the trails, you pass people and like you could be passing. It was foreign to me because before I started trail running and ultra running, I'd pass them. If I passed anybody in anything, I'm like, yeah, motherfucker. Like I'm mad that they passed me. But then I started seeing the way the trail culture was and just everybody smiling and all that stuff. And so it doesn't sound like you're putting pressure on yourself, which is awesome because I started to put pressure on myself.
I mean, a little bit. I am a little bit. I'm just not talking about it.
But I would forget to smile and I would forget to have fun with it. And it's like, man, I'm doing this to have fun. Yeah, it hurts. Yeah, it's hard and all that stuff. But like the amount of how you feel afterward, it doesn't pale in comparison to anything else. So.
Right. And we volunteered to do it.
Right. Nobody's forcing me to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Every distance I had ever done, I remember getting done with a long race. I'm like, well, I'm good with that. No reason to ever run this far again.
No.
And then I wake up the next day. I'm like, all right, what's the next mile? I guess I'll do it. So
that's funny.
So you told me about your rock bottom moment. Do you have this is the I Am Redemption podcast. So do you have a moment of redemption where you just took a look around and you're like, I'm back. I made it. I'm here.
There's probably a lot of redemption moments, but without rock bottom moments, you can't have redemption moments. And I think I'll stay with that same period of my life. I mean, getting over the Darfur, when I made the decision to go, I called every NGO, like Doctors Without Borders, Catholic Relief Services, Child Fund, and all of them said, you don't have a college degree, you don't have any special skills. It's a war zone. What are you going to do over there? And I'm like, I'll do anything. I'm reading about how you guys are understaffed and these camps are filling up, and overflowing. Like, you need help. I'll fly myself over there, put myself up. I'll figure it out. I don't want you to sponsor me. I just want to help.
Yeah.
And they were just like, well, it's not that simple. It's just red tape, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay. Well, I mean, I could have just said, yeah, I guess it's just not on the cards. But for whatever reason, I didn't. And I just decided I was going to go either way. I'm just going to fly over there and figure it out. So now I somehow obtained a visa from the consulate, like a 60-day work visa. And I flew over there to N'Djamena, the capital of Chad, which is very far from where the camps were. And then I talked my way onto a little UN flight and, got out there. And then I'm out there and they're like interrogating me, like, who are you? What are you doing here? And like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, I'm just here to help. And I'm here now, so you better use me.
Right.
And they did. And I just remember like that first night after getting to volunteer in the camp and laying, like I was sleeping on the ground just like everybody else, and I'm laying there like under this beautiful, lit up African sky and like all the stars, and just kind of feeling like I was home in a weird way, something I hadn't really felt in a long time, if ever. And I was right where I was supposed to be in this very foreign place. And just like I did it, like I said I was gonna do this thing and I figured it out, and now I'm here. And then the next 59 days are what really changed me. And gained so much perspective and appreciation for the opportunity we have here and the opportunity to serve other people. And, anyway, but that moment, that first night of like, everybody told me I couldn't do this or I wouldn't make it. And they were all telling me this is impossible. It's not something that you can do. And now I'm here.
Right.
So like, what can't I do now?
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's awesome. So I got some quick fun questions to help you help get people to know you a little bit better, and then I'd like to go into real quick about what you got going on right now. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw out some terms. You just give me the first thing that comes to mind. All right.
Okay.
All right. Football.
Longhorns.
Veterans.
The Journey.
Favorite movie.
Ooh, that's a good one. The Wrestler.
Ooh, good one. Mickey Rourke.
I love The Wrestler.
That one's good. United States of America.
Promising.
Hey, Hollywood.
Ridiculous.
I wonder what you're going to say for that one. It's got to be wild. Gym or run?
Run.
Run? Over the gym?
Outside, man.
Like
being outside in nature, no headphones, just disconnected from all technology.
Right. You don't have with headphones?
Never.
Me neither. I never have once.
I just want to, I don't care if I'm listening to traffic and,
Right.
you know, whatever, the smells, all the senses, but you're present. That's the most present I am is when I'm on a run.
Dude, there's something so healing, especially when you're trail running and you're out there deep in the woods on the trail. No phones, no Wi-Fi, no cars. It's just you and on the trail. Yeah. Watch out for snakes. Favorite show?
I just watched Beef. I loved it.
Beef
on Netflix. You got to watch it.
It's good?
It's so good.
I'm going to check it out.
Oh,
I've been watching this show called Joe Pickett right now.
I got to check that out. I don't know that one.
Which you belong in something like that.
Okay.
It's like kind of like Yellowstone a little bit, but
okay.
It's good. It's nature. He's a, what do you call it? Game warden.
Oh, cool.
It's pretty good. Air Force.
Soft.
Remember, I was Army chick.
No.
Teamwork.
Makes the dream work. That's not one word. No, teamwork, it's inspiring.
Right. Last but not least, Texas or Cali?
Texas.
There you go.
Actually, you know what?
What?
Ask that question again.
Texas or Cali?
Austin.
All right. There you go. Best of both worlds right there.
Exactly.
So what have you been working on now? What do you got going?
Yeah, so aside from first of all, MVP is still out, and I would love people to check it out.
Right.
You know, it's important story, it's an important project. The website for merging vets and players is vetsandplayers.org, and please go watch the movie on Amazon Prime, Apple TV, Showtime, whatever you got.
It's on everything, and you do not have to be a veteran or even be an athlete to love this movie. It's very powerful.
It's based on real people, and it's for real people.
Right.
But right now, the current project is Discovery Channel / streaming on Max as well, a series called Survive the Raft. So it's based on a social experiment from 50 years ago. In 1973, this anthropologist put 10 people on a raft, and they floated from the Canary Islands in Spain to Mexico. So it was 101 days across the Atlantic. 10 very diverse people from all walks of life, 5 men, 5 women, all were married, but none were with their spouse. So in the original experiment on this journey, aside from having to put their differences, you know, to the wayside and work together towards a common goal, they also started having sex. So the tabloids got a hold of it and they called it the sex raft.
Okay.
So that's where it gained popularity, but people didn't really understand what was going on. The fact that, you know, this was a social experiment, and this was, you know, a very divisive time as well 50 years ago, coming out of the Vietnam War, Watergate, Roe versus Wade, you know, some similar themes to today.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided to recreate this social experiment in 2023 down in the Pearl Islands in Panama. So we've got 9 Americans we start with from all walks of life, living on this raft, floating around, trying to figure out, trying to learn about one another, but also like figure out this competition series, you know, and this game, like really, and like how, I mean, there's money at stake. But
yes,
beyond all that, the Trojan horse is like, can these people, you know, in a time where no one wants to listen to one another and really have these conversations, can they do it? You know, can they work together? Can they put their pride aside? And what's the most important thing here? Is it surviving the trip, being successful, you know, maybe going home with some, you know, life-changing amount of money? Or is it, you know, sticking to your guns and digging in and like being right?
Right.
What's the most important thing to you? So
right. dude, you had posted about it. You had told me about it. You had posted about it, and then my wife and I checked it out, and I started, and it's right up her alley. So she's all in. She loves on shows like that, and I will be honest. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like that.
Me too.
As soon as we did, I was like, all right, this is kind of good.
Yeah, no, me too. I don't really watch a lot of reality TV, and I like documentaries.
Yeah.
And I love your story is incredible, man. I got to watch that last year, but I don't watch a lot of reality TV because it's like, and I've spent a decent amount of time in Hollywood, so I know a lot of these are they're unscripted.
Right.
They're not. They're very scripted. They're very contrived. But when I was pitched this show and I understood the intent behind it, I was like, man, this is super interesting. And they're like, we want you to host because of your background, because you got this very interesting background. You've met with a lot of people, from Colin Kaepernick to, people in Iraq and Afghanistan with very different culture and customs, to the locker rooms you spent time in. And, you just seem to be open to different ideas. And you I love to learn and listen to people. Not that I don't have my own opinions, but I'm willing to change and bend them. And, maybe I know I don't have all the answers, so maybe I can flex a bit too. And that's what they were hoping some of these people on the show would do. And some do and some don't, but, going out there and getting into it, I was a little cautiously optimistic because I was like, but like, how much is it going to be just set up and all that? And at least this show, like, not really, what I mean? I mean, we adjusted as we went, and there was so much autonomy from the cast, which are really crew members on this raft. Like, they got to make their own rules quite a bit, kind of self-govern, and which is good and bad.
Right.
But that made it more interesting to me, and now that it's done, I'm getting to see the final product. Like, I am into it,
Right.
And it's like, man, everybody loves or hates it, which is great.
Right.
It's like the reviews are like, oh, this is way too political. And it's like, well, we're not injecting politics. These is just people. This is what happens when you put people with different opinions, sometimes extreme opinions in a room together. Like, they're going to, if they're willing to, and they open up, like, they're going to have some debates. You know what I mean? That's what they're going to get into. But then there's other people you'd think would never work together or listen to one another or even sit or have to sleep next to one another. And now they're doing it, and they're forced to do it. And all of a sudden they become biggest thieves.
Yeah. That's good. Real quick, you have enough stuff where I could go on for another couple-hour podcast with you. But you brought up Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but when all the Colin Kaepernick stuff was going on, and he had started to sit on the bench because he was protesting police brutality, he reached out to you, correct?
No, I wrote an open letter.
That's right.
So I wrote an open letter through the Army Times that honestly I didn't think he was gonna read. I mean, he had a lot going on, and every media outlet in the world, trying to get him to come on and say, speak his piece or whatever. But I had a good amount of people reaching out to me, asking me, hey, you got to weigh in on this thing. You're a vet and you played in the league for a heartbeat, so you must be the authority on, anthem protocol during the football games. And I'm like, I am not. I didn't even know the whole history about it until, later. But I wrote an open letter just saying, hey, this is my experience. This is why these symbols mean something to me because of what I did and, what I volunteered to do. And when I took the oath, it was to defend the Constitution, which includes the First Amendment. And I don't have to agree with how people choose to exercise that right, but that is a right that they have. And, as long as they're not hurting anybody in the process, they're trying to make the world a better place and the country a better place. Like, I respect that.
Right.
And so I respected him and the fact that it took a lot of courage to do what he was doing, and people have their own opinions about that, and I respect them too. What I mean? So I wrote this open letter just kind of laying that out, and he ended up reading it and reaching out and wanted to meet. And so we sat down before their final preseason game in 2016. And this was just a year after I was up in Seattle. And we had a conversation in the lobby of the team hotel.
He was playing for the Niners.
Playing for the Niners. That was my team.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I was a huge Kaepernick fan. I still am.
Yeah.
As far as a player, like he brought us we were bad for a long time. And all of a sudden we're in the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Almost won it. And I sat in the lobby of the team hotel with him and Eric Reed. And we just had a conversation about, they had very different experiences than me. And like, I never experienced racism, and I don't know what it's like to be a person of color, I never will.
Right.
But just getting the opportunity to listen to them, and then they were asking me a lot of questions about, the veteran community, the military community, and Colin finally asked me, is there another way I can protest that won't offend people in the military? And I was like, no, there's nothing you can do that some people are going to be offended no matter what you do. But I think being alongside your teammates would be nice, instead of kind of sitting back on the bench alone. And he agreed. So we came to this place where, he decided, it was his choice. Absolutely. I didn't tell him what to do. I maybe suggested, kneeling alongside his teammates, but, it was absolutely him and Eric's choice to do that. And they took a knee, alongside their teammates that game. And I stood right next to Colin, when the anthem played, and a lot of people in the crowd were booing, and it was a complicated situation,
Right.
But, his willingness to adjust, I thought was pretty powerful, and a lot of people didn't see that or get that. And,
right.
And that was frustrating. But it was, I think it was an important moment. Obviously the kneeling kind of took the world by storm. I mean, there's players in like the Premier League in soccer. Still do it. And, but anyway, I was very fortunate to be able to have a conversation with him around that, and especially that early on with everything. And, this was weeks before the election, Trump versus Hillary, what I mean? And it was divisive times already.
All riled up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was one of those guilty parties. I saw him taking a knee, not having known you, and I think that's what gets lost. The media got a hold of it, and it gets painted this certain way, and you realize like, oh no, he actually took the time to sit down with a Green Beret and talk about it and come to a conclusion. So he's still doing his best to pay homage to the military while still standing up for what he believes in with police brutality. And like that sucks that it was lost on me. And so that was when I got introduced to you and got to know you better and stuff like that. That was one of the things that fascinated me. And so,
well, the last thing that any of these mainstream media outlets want is unity, because that doesn't sell advertising spots. Right. So it's like, and some of them, to be fair, some of them did talk about that, but it always seemed to have, some kind of an angle or a twist, or like the headline was not exactly what the article was about and stuff like that. And so, I mean, I get it. It's a business. That's a business, but like it sucks that news is a business, and that it's all about, bottom line and not necessarily the truth.
Right.
And so, and that's all of them. I'm not calling any specific media outlet out. A lot of them are, they struggle with that. And that's why it's one of the reasons, I got reached out to by all of them to come on and weigh in on the situation before I even met with Colin. But I chose to write an open letter through the Army Times, which nobody reads, because I knew they wouldn't do that. You know what I mean? They'd let me, they'd keep it real. And I appreciated that.
Right.
And they did. And that's why, I think that's why a lot of people read it, and a lot of people were somewhat inspired by it, because it was, I don't know what the numbers are, but that middle 80% of us that are like, yeah, maybe we lean left or lean right, but we're reasonable. You know what I mean? And it spoke to a lot of them, because that's how I feel.
Right. Well, brother, I can't thank you enough for coming on today.
It's my honor.
I appreciate your time, dude. I'm super proud of everything you're doing. I can't wait to see what you do next. And,
you too, Sean.
I can't wait to check in with you after this race, man.
Yeah, I bet you can.
Can wait. We'll have to grab lunch or dinner, and you can tell me all about it.
All right, cool.
So, because this isn't the I Am Redemption podcast, when I say I Am Redemption, it's not speaking to me. Anybody can be I Am Redemption. And so one thing we do on the podcast is I'll ask the guests to look into their camera. If you would throw out some I Am statements. Who is Nate Boyer?
Woo! Straight in the camera? I'm not good at these.
What do you mean?
It's not my thing.
You're in Hollywood.